Hello guys and welcome back to the channel. So I had to sacrifice my Palantir shares and I tweeted about this on Twitter, and I think this was widely misunderstood because I did not sell my shares. So I want to make this video to set the record straight of what exactly happened to me and why. And then number two, I want to go over the unbelievably good earnings that Palantir has come out with, and how that changes my thesis and price target for Palantir and what I think is going to happen from here. But before I start, please make sure that you're subscribed to the channel. And I want to shout out to the channel members who number in the 17, 18 now, and they support the channel, and thank you guys very much. And if you feel you get value out of this video and you want to support the channel, you can do it in the description box below. So let's begin with the video. So many of you know that I started learning about options and how you can wheel certain stocks and sell options to get a monthly income. I thought that my portfolio is together with my dad, who soon needs to retire. And when he retires, there is, like, the original plan was that we have to sell out of the portfolio. And that's obviously a very bad outcome when you're sitting on stuff like Rocket Lab or Palantir, that I think has a very, very bright future. So I was looking for an alternative of, like, what else can we do to keep, to have your cake and eat it too. And I thought that options was a fantastic thing, and I started, studying about them. And as with anything, like, this is also what I thought would happen. Normally, you're very bad at something when you do it in the beginning, and it takes like some learning and effort, to get good at it. And this is what I thought would happen. And of course, when I started selling options, I was doing it backwards, and I basically wrote some put options on Rocket Lab, which was supposed to be for wheeling, and I got assigned 200,000 Rocket Lab shares on margin, $200,000 worth of Rocket Lab shares on margin. And I had a very tiny little bit of margin on my account to begin with. I think it was like $50,000 on like a 200,000 portfolio. But with me being assigned the Rocket Lab shares, the margin became, like, basically I had 200,000 shares and 200,000 margin. So like 50% of the account was on margin. And this was all according to plan. But the problem was that I should have written call options on the Rocket Lab stocks that I was assigned to start making the income. But I am so bullish on Rocket Lab that I wanted to find a way how to basically still keep the shares. And I was looking at ways to send money on my broker account. And long story short, it's not fully handled yet, but it means that my account is quite leveraged at the moment, right? And is therefore at risk. And long story short, come Monday morning, my account was $270,000 a week ago, and Palantir took a nosedive and Rocket Lab took a nosedive at the same freaking time. We don't go. I think I'm going to make like a dedicated option video so for the people who are interested in this. But the point is that Monday morning when I opened the account, my balance was from 280,000 down to 120,000, something like this. And my margin maintenance was $140,000, meaning that my broker was going to force sell some of my shares. And I was very, very bummed about this because I knew that this was a very irrational reaction on the market. And of course, I went into self-reflecting and blaming and whatever that people do when this happens. And I was like, oh my God, I might end up in a situation that I get margin called, and they wouldn't have sold all my positions. It would have been a part of my position. So I participate in the insanity of the market, but when the market reverses, I'm out of the shares, right? And like 30 minutes before the market opened, I got an idea because I had a plan, and my plan was obviously to lessen the margin. What I would do is I would sell covered calls on Palantir and on Rocket Lab. And I had a target price. And when Palantir was in the 29s, I was like, they're going to report earnings, and the earnings is going to be blowout earnings. And then the stock jumps up, and then I will write a covered call with probably a 35 or maybe even a $40 strike price. And that would be a real win-win because I can't lose on that one, right? And it would like slowly fill up the margin on the account because I would get paid like $30,000 and probably $30,000 on Rocket Lab, which would take out $60,000 out of the margin that is on the account. And if I manage to do this, like 2 years, then the covered calls would pay for the margin that is on the account. That was the golden plan. And everything worked exactly as I freaking thought that it would, except I did not count with this freaking carry trade collapse of the market just before Palantir earnings. So I was very levered and I had zero protection because when you sell covered calls, you are protected when the market goes down. So when just before the market opened, I was like, okay, I could sell call options on Palantir, which would bring money in the door, which would make that the margin requirements goes lower, and then my account wouldn't be margin called. But I knew that when the stock market opened, it was a complete irrational sales, and I knew that I should probably be buying call options on Palantir instead. But I was looking at like which version would I be more comfortable with. One, losing the shares that I have and then the market going up, or selling a covered call that most probably will end up being in the money, which has the risk of my Palantir shares being called away from me. And I'm sorry to say the reason why I chose Palantir is because I think Rocket Lab I have a higher conviction in, and it has a higher potential upside. Obviously, I don't want my Palantir shares taken away, but I was like, okay, that's going to be my sacrificial lamb. And it might be that for a few years now, my covered calls are going to be underwater because I wrote a $24 covered call with March 2025 expiry, meaning if that date comes and the Palantir shares are at $30, I'm obligated to sell my shares at $24. Keep in mind, I got these shares at $8 something, $8.87, something like this. And I sold a lot of covered calls on it already. So I should actually count the math, but probably my average with the covered calls is below, like, for sure below $8, maybe even below $7. So, but if this time comes and Palantir is 30 and I have the strike at 24, I can roll my call option higher. So I extend the time and maybe increase the strike price. So then I would have a $28 sell obligation, and maybe it would be until December 2025. But the problem is that if Palantir would completely take off and it would go to $60, it would not make sense for me to roll the covered calls. And at that point, I would just probably let the shares go, which would be a huge loss. But keep in mind, it's a much better loss than losing all my shares. Not all my shares, but like being margin called on my shares and not being able to participate in the upside at all. So this is what happened to me. That's the truth. So now I wanted to quickly go through the Palantir earnings and show you what has changed, if anything, and what are my current price projections. It's so interesting because I remember when I first started covering Palantir, we were looking at these reports that they did, and we were trying to find anything positive, anything they didn't communicate correctly, to keep the hype up, because these videos are for you guys, but also for us, because I also have emotions as an investor, and I started buying Palantir at $12, and when it goes to 10, and then you buy more, and then it goes to 8, and then you buy more, and then it goes to 6. It really starts to test your conviction, So then it's so nice to do these videos because I get to research and rebuild up my conviction, while I feel like I'm giving value to the audience by helping them keep the conviction and helping them go through the rough times. And it's actually quite boring when the company is doing good, and I feel quite useless as a creator. And I think Palantir has arrived in this phase, because what do you need to explain on this graph? What is it that is hidden, missed, or people are missing? You look at their GAAP net income, and it's just going up, 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 up in a almost vertical line. And everything in this report is amazing and doing good. And I think that this was a very significant Palantir earnings, because this is the first real earnings when we start to see the results of AIP. There has been a lot of debate between bulls and bears about, is this AIP bootcamp strategy really working? And we had signs that it's working. We see the attendance, from all the YouTube channels and Palantir's live videos from the events. So we saw that there was a lot of attendees, but that's not closes and money through the door, right? Then the second thing we started to see is the customer numbers started to grow, right? But just because your customer number is growing, keep in mind that Palantir is selling very, very big contracts. And we were like, okay, but on this bootcamp strategy, we don't know how big the contracts are that they're selling, but we see that there is customers going through the doors. I'm trying to, here you go. You see 27 deals of more than 10 million, right? So when we saw these lot of customers, we were like, okay, but Alex Karp has this tendency to, give Palantir away for free when it's needed. And it's cool, we're getting a lot of customers, but is this try us, give us your credit card and we charge you $1 the first year, and then maybe we charge you a little bit? Or is this big, serious, big boy contracts? And this is the first quarter when we have had a blowout in everything. And we see clearly that the AIP bootcamp strategy is working. The future is bright. And I did a video before earnings that, I don't know this new Palantir company. It's hard to forecast it because we don't really have their conversion numbers. We don't really know. We had a Palantir before AIP bootcamp, and we have one after AIP bootcamp. And I feel that after this quarter, I'm a lot more certain in projecting the future finances of the company. This is the horrible day. You can see this is when my account was basically almost margin called. And I really think that this week, it is other people being margin called. And then the buyers came in, and then the rest is history. Anyways, back to my Palantir model. And the funny thing is, when I started this model, Palantir didn't have any positive GAAP earnings, right? So it was impossible to do one that is based on PE. So I'm thinking about redoing this, because this is currently based on free cash flow and based on basically adjusted operating income. And this is the revenue increase percentage that I have. You see that if you change this number, it changes it in all the next years. So this was a big question mark. Are we going to accelerate to 40%, 50%? The projections were 22% growth for Palantir, but I think even your grandmother knew that that was too low. And now we know that, okay, the growth with AIP bootcamps is 27%. It might still accelerate a little bit more, but I don't think it's real that we would get a 40-50% increase in revenue. And keep in mind that these numbers are also very easy comps, because Palantir slowed down a lot the previous year. The growth, I think, in some quarters was down to 13% year-over-year growth. So we also have so even if this acceleration continues, but the comps get harder. So it's quite tough to go up to like 40, 50%. But hey, 27% is a very, very nice number. And all I'm trying to say with this is, you know, before this earnings, it was like, we had like this really, really big range, you know, like Dan Ives was like, Palantir might go to $50. And, you know, some people were like, this is an $8 stock. And now we really have the data to plug in and get a very good ballpark figure. So I'm going to use this 27% number. Maybe they accelerate faster in 2024, 2025, but to go, I'm projecting all the way to 2020, 30. Now, another surprise is the adjusted operating margin in the report. If you look at it, let me see if I find it. Ooh. It became 37%. So that means that every $100 they earned from operations, 37 was pure profit. And that is a sick profit margin. And it's funny because you can see that this is the number that I used to count with, right? And then I had to increase it to this. And then I increased it to 32 and I'm like, nah, I'm being way too bullish. They went to 37. I checked the year-end projection is 35 because, you know, the first quarters of the years was less. And again, we're going 10 years out. So I'm going to leave it at 35. I don't want to be super bullish. Even the dilution, they started buying back shares. It's not a lot of shares, but they did start the share buyback. So I'm feeling quite confident that this number is also in the ballpark. And the point is that based on this calculation in 2025, okay, just a little bit more data. So this is the adjusted operating profit that they will have in 2025. And I'm giving a 50 multiple to that, which I think is very reasonable on this growth that they're having. I think I'm going to remake this because it's possible to make one on actual earnings, like GAAP earnings. But this table was made before that was even possible. So according to this table, in 2025, the fair value of Palantir would be $27. And if you want to have a 15% return on your money, then the fair value would be $21.65 today. But if you are looking out into 2030, I think the stock will be $76. And if you would discount that back to with the 15% return per year, then you go down to $30.67. The stock closed at 26.59, and that means that currently Palantir is fairly priced for the growth that it has. And you can hate me if you want in the comments. I know that there is some people who is like, Palantir should be 50, and I mean, I hope I'm wrong on this. But I understand that before this earnings, there was a lot of question marks and we didn't know what growth number we can count with. We didn't know what profit margin we can count with. We didn't know, there was just so much that was unknown. And I feel that this earnings really put a lot of clarity, at least for me, that gives me a lot of confidence in these numbers. So I have a full position in Palantir, so I'm not looking to add or sell any of my position. But if I was looking to build out a Palantir position, what I would do is I would buy every dip. You know, if the stock goes back down to 22, 23, I would buy that dip. And when the stock goes to 30, 35, I would ease up on the buying. Because, yeah, then it's over fair value. And why would you want to buy over fair value? So this is my Palantir story and earnings recap. Please let me know in the comments what you guys think about what I have said. Also my margin situation and about my fair value of the shares. And let me know what you are thinking about doing. And thank you so much for watching. And I'll see you in the next video. Ciao, ciao.